You think you know humiliation? Try sitting at your own family's Christmas dinner and being introduced as the family disappointment. That's exactly what my sister did to me. One moment, everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, enjoying the warm glow of the holiday lights. And the next, Blair's voice sliced through the room like a cold wind. My name is Kasha Vance, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible sister, the one who blended into the background, who stayed quiet, who worked hard but never got credit for anything. Meanwhile, Blair was the shining star. The successful one, the charming one, the daughter my parents bragged about to anyone who would listen. I wasn't jealous. I was just tired of being the shadow behind her spotlight. That night, my parents had gone all out. The table was perfectly set, the candles glowed softly, and the smell of roasted turkey filled the room. Blair had brought her new boyfriend, Holden Thorne, the kind of man who walked in and immediately owned the room. Tall, calm, quietly confident. A CEO at his age? My parents adored him instantly. Dinner was almost over when Blair decided it was the perfect moment to belittle me. She placed her hand on Holden's arm, leaned in close to him, and with the fakest smile said, "And this is Kasha, the one who still hasn't quite figured her life out." I felt my heart drop. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My fork hovered in midair. The entire table fell silent, and all eyes turned toward me. My cheeks burned, and I could feel the embarrassment crawling up my skin. My own family didn't even try to stop her. They just looked away, pretending they hadn't heard. But Holden, he didn't laugh. He didn't brush it off. He didn't even force a polite smile. Instead, he studied Blair with a strange expression, like he didn't recognize the woman sitting beside him. Then he looked at me. Really looked. His gaze held steady, calm, and strangely reassuring. And in that silence, before anyone could speak, he said 4 words that changed everything. I find that hard to believe. The room shifted. You could feel it. Blair stiffened instantly, her smile frozen. My parents looked confused, unsure how to react. And me? For the first time in years, I felt seen. Holden didn't explain himself. He didn't need to. The way he looked at me, like he wasn't buying Blair's story, was louder than anything he could have said. Blair tried to laugh it off, saying she was just joking. But even she could tell the night was slipping out of her control. And that moment, that quiet moment of unexpected defense, set off a chain of events none of us saw coming. Because that Christmas night was the beginning of the end of Blair's perfect image, and the beginning of my awakening. In the days after Christmas, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened at dinner. Holden's simple words kept replaying in my mind. No one had ever spoken up for me like that, especially not in front of my family. It felt strange, almost unreal, that someone finally saw through Blair's behavior. His quiet defense shook something awake inside me, something I had buried for years. For the first time, I looked back at my life with clear eyes. I saw how many moments I had stayed silent, even when my ideas were stolen. I remembered how many times I worked late, finished projects, and solved problems, only to watch Blair step forward and take the praise while I stood in the back, smiling like it didn't bother me. I had let it happen because it was easier than fighting. I had convinced myself that being unnoticed was normal. But now, that old version of me felt distant. I was tired of being the quiet one, the helpful sister, the person everyone expected to stay small. Blair had built her whole image on my efforts, and I had allowed it because I thought it didn't matter. But it did. Every time I stayed silent, she grew stronger, and I shrank a little more. The Christmas dinner became a turning point. I finally admitted to myself that Blair's success at Thorne Industries wasn't built on her charm alone. It was built on my ideas, my drafts, my hours of work that she passed off as her own. And while she walked around the office like she owned the place, I was the one fixing her mistakes behind the scenes. I realized something important. Being kind didn't mean letting people walk all over me. Being humble didn't mean being invisible. And being family didn't give her the right to treat me like I didn't matter. So I made a decision. A simple, quiet, firm decision. I was done being a doormat. I wasn't going to shout or confront her in anger. Instead, I was going to stand up for myself in the one place where it mattered most, our workplace. Thorne Industries was where Blair had built her flawless reputation, but I knew the truth behind it. I knew the projects she claimed as hers. I knew the ideas that came from my notebook, my laptop, my late nights. And I was going to take my power back. I would no longer hide in the background while she shined with borrowed light. This time, I would step into the center and let the truth speak for itself. Once I made the decision to stop letting Blair walk over me, I I knew I couldn't act without proof. I needed solid evidence, something clear, something undeniable. So I started working quietly, carefully, without giving her any hint of what I was doing. Every night after work, I stayed up late at my desk. I opened old emails, searched through saved messages, and looked into old project folders. I went back months, even years, digging through anything that connected me to the work she had claimed as her own. It took hours, sometimes the whole night, but I kept going. I wasn't angry or emotional while doing it. I felt calm, focused, and stronger than ever. As I searched, I found more than I expected. I discovered early drafts of ideas I had written, the same ideas Blair later presented in meetings. I found design files that still had my name in the metadata, proving that I was the original creator. I found notes from brainstorming sessions where I wrote down solutions we used, but the final records listed her as the one who spoke up. Piece by piece, the truth came together. Some files made me pause. I remembered staying late to fix things she didn't understand, only for her to take the credit the next morning. I remembered typing up full proposals, while she gave the presentations and accepted the applause. But instead of feeling hurt again, I saved every bit of proof. I wasn't doing this out of emotion anymore. I was building a case step by step. I organized everything into a folder on a hidden drive, carefully labeled, easy to understand, impossible to deny. Emails were sorted by date. Design files were placed next to the final versions Blair used. Meeting notes were matched with the presentations she delivered. Anyone who looked at this collection would see exactly what happened. I had done the work, and she had taken the credit. This wasn't about revenge driven by anger. It was about justice. I wanted the truth to be seen, and I wanted it to speak for itself. Every document I found became a brick in the foundation I was building. My hands didn't shake, my heart didn't race. I felt steady, almost peaceful. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't making mistakes. I was preparing. By the time I was done, I had a portfolio strong enough to expose everything. And I knew that once the right eyes saw it, Blair's perfect image would start to crack. Slowly, quietly, and then all at once. By the time the next major project at Thorn Industries came up, I was ready to make my first move. I didn't want to be reckless or obvious. I knew that even the smallest mistake could ruin everything I had planned. So I focused on precision, patience, and subtlety. Blair had prepared a presentation for senior management, one she intended to use to reinforce her perfect employee image. I had seen the drafts she claimed as her own and knew exactly how to expose the truth without drawing attention to myself. Late one night, I accessed the shared folder and carefully replaced her final version with an earlier draft of mine. It was my original work, complete, polished, and clearly superior. I made sure the file kept its older timestamp, so anyone checking would see it as something from the past, not a sudden addition. Everything was set perfectly. The day of the presentation arrived, and Blair walked into the conference room confidently, expecting to impress everyone. She clicked through the slides, smoothly explaining each point, unaware that the version she was showing was mine, not hers. Most of the executives nodded politely, but Holden, who had started noticing inconsistencies over the past weeks, frowned slightly. He paused at one slide and asked a question that made Blair stumble. His question wasn't accusatory, but it was enough to make her hesitate. He asked about the timestamp on the file and how it didn't match her notes. The moment was quiet, almost tense, and everyone in the room turned their attention to her. Blair tried to brush it off, saying it must have been a technical glitch or an error from IT. But her explanations were weak, uncertain, and unconvincing. She glanced at me briefly, probably sensing something, but I stayed calm, neutral, and composed. The room felt different after that. People who had always admired Blair for her supposed expertise began to exchange subtle glances, questioning what they had been told. The carefully maintained image of the flawless sister, the golden employee, started to show cracks. It wasn't a dramatic explosion or confrontation, but a quiet, undeniable shift. I didn't need to say anything. I didn't raise my voice or make accusations. The evidence spoke for itself, and the seed of doubt had been planted in everyone's minds. Blair's perfect facade, the one she had relied on for years to maintain her power and status, had begun to fracture. That small, precise maneuver, the quiet replacement of a single file, was the first real step in changing everything. It proved to me that subtle, calculated moves could be more powerful than anger or confrontation. The foundation was set, and now the unraveling had officially begun. After the first crack in Blair's facade, I knew I couldn't rush things. I had to be patient and let my actions speak louder than words. I didn't brag or make a scene. Instead, I focused on doing my job better than ever. I showed up on time, stayed late when needed, and completed projects with care and precision. Slowly, people at the office began to notice. My work was quietly impressive, and it spoke for itself. Even Holden started paying closer attention, watching how capable I had become without needing to announce it. I also left subtle clues about my past contributions. I didn't confront anyone or accuse Blair directly. Instead, I made sure copies of my original drafts and notes were placed where Holden or other decision-makers might find them naturally. It was like a trail of breadcrumbs, leading him to see the truth without me saying a single word. Every email, every draft, every carefully documented note became evidence, showing what I had really done and how Blair had taken credit. Watching Holden start to notice was satisfying, though I never let it show. He didn't rush to judgment, but the change in his behavior was clear. He started asking questions that he hadn't before, double-checking details in meetings and reviewing project files more carefully. He didn't confront Blair openly yet, but I could see the trust he had once placed in her beginning to fade. He began relying on me more, asking for my input and advice, while Blair's authority quietly weakened. I also became more confident in the office. I wasn't seeking attention, but I wasn't invisible anymore either. People began to respect my competence, and my presence was noticed without any drama. Blair, on the other hand, grew more anxious. She sensed a shift in the room, in the way colleagues looked at her and listened to her ideas. The balance was changing, but I stayed calm, letting every small move work in my favor. This silent campaign was slow but effective. I didn't need to fight or shout. My consistent, reliable, and intelligent actions started to make the difference. The seeds of doubt in Blair's work and character grew steadily, while my credibility and strength quietly took root. Every day the office, and Holden, saw the real me, and Blair's carefully built image weakened just a little more. The change was subtle, but it was unstoppable. When the company announced an anonymous innovation challenge, I knew it was the perfect opportunity. There were no names, no departments, no positions attached, just pure ideas. It was exactly the kind of situation where my work could shine without being overshadowed or stolen. I spent several nights shaping a concept that was fresh, practical, and creative. I made sure every detail was clear and well thought out. When I submitted it, I felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement, but also a quiet confidence. No one would know it was mine, and that gave me a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. A few weeks later, the results were announced, and the entire office buzzed with energy. People crowded around screens and talked excitedly about the winning idea. When they revealed the top entry, I recognized my own work immediately. My concept had taken first place, standing out among dozens of submissions from across the company. The praise poured in from every corner. Managers admired the originality, employees discussed the smart details, and everyone wanted to know who had submitted it. Because it was anonymous, no one could guess the creator, and that only made the excitement grow. It became a topic everyone talked about during lunch breaks, in hallways, and even in the parking lot. The unknown genius behind the winning idea became something like a small office legend. And Blair, she couldn't hide her reaction. She forced a smile in front of others, but I saw how tense her jaw was. She hated not knowing who created it, and even more, she hated not being able to take the credit. Every time someone praised the idea, she looked uncomfortable, as if the spotlight she usually enjoyed had suddenly shifted away from her. What bothered her most wasn't just the winning idea. It was the fact that she had nothing impressive of her own to show. Without my work to steal, her creativity seemed frozen. She had no new concepts, no fresh angles, nothing that made her stand out. It was like the company was seeing her clearly for the first time. Meanwhile, my anonymous success sparked excitement among the leadership team. They praised the mystery innovator repeatedly and encouraged others to follow that standard. Even Holden looked more thoughtful than usual, as if the puzzle pieces were beginning to line up in his mind. This moment wasn't loud or dramatic, but it changed everything. It showed the company that real talent existed somewhere unseen, and it proved that Blair's ideas had never been as strong as everyone believed. My work was finally being recognized, quietly, anonymously, and powerfully. And the best part was this: Blair couldn't stop it, couldn't twist it, and couldn't claim it. For once, the truth stood on its own. After the innovation challenge, things began to change quickly. but not because of anything I said. It was Blair who started to fall apart under the pressure. For so long, she had lived off praise and attention. She was used to being the one everyone admired. But now, with a brilliant anonymous idea overshadowing her and people at work paying attention to others besides her, her confidence started to crack. At work, she became tense and jumpy. Simple tasks that she usually handled with ease suddenly became problems. She made mistakes in reports, forgot small details in meetings, and reacted sharply when someone asked her a question. Her voice lost its calm charm and became sharp, almost defensive. People who once looked up to her now avoided her because she snapped at them for no reason. She tried to act normal, but her behavior made it clear that something inside her was breaking. She grew suspicious too. She started asking coworkers about the anonymous idea, trying to guess who created it. She watched people closely, as if everyone was hiding something from her. The pressure of not being in control made her restless and uneasy. The confident Blair everyone knew was fading, replaced by someone insecure and unpredictable. At home, things were no better for her. Our parents, who always praised her and compared me to her, slowly began to see the changes. They noticed her short temper, her late-night stress, and her constant frustration. At the same time, they noticed something different in me. I wasn't loud, I wasn't showing off, but I carried myself differently. I was calmer, more focused, and less afraid to speak when needed. They sensed a shift, even if they didn't understand it. For the first time, they didn't rush to defend Blair when she acted out. They watched her with concern instead of admiration. And when they spoke to me, there was a new softness in their tone. They asked about my work, my day, my goals, things they rarely asked before. The balance that once leaned completely in Blair's favor was slowly evening out. Blair felt the change too. She didn't say it out loud, but the way she looked at me at home, almost confused or irritated, showed she knew something was slipping from her hands. She wasn't the only shining one anymore. The shift was small at first, but steady. Day by day, the family dynamic changed, not through arguments or fights, but through quiet realizations. The pedestal Blair stood on for years was starting to crack, and for the first time, I wasn't standing in her shadow. The day of the confrontation arrived quietly, without warning or drama. Blair walked into the office as usual, still trying to pretend everything was under control, even though it clearly wasn't. She had no idea that Holden had spent the past week putting the final pieces together. He had reviewed old projects, checked server records, compared drafts, and looked closely at every detail I had left behind for him to discover. By the time he called her into his office, he knew the truth with absolute certainty. Holden's office was always calm and orderly, but that day the atmosphere felt different, heavy, serious. Blair stepped inside with a confident smile, trying to act natural. But the moment she saw the documents neatly arranged on his desk, her smile faded. Holden didn't greet her with his usual warmth. Instead, he gestured for her to sit, his face unreadable. He began by placing a thick folder in front of her. Inside was a complete record of her actions over the years. Projects she had claimed as her own, ideas she had presented, and designs she had showcased. Then he showed her the original files, each one with my name in the metadata, each one clearly written or created by me. He explained calmly how he had found timestamp mismatches, duplicate drafts, and traces of my work hidden behind her polished presentations. At first, Blair tried to laugh it off, saying it was some kind of misunderstanding. But Holden didn't move, didn't smile, didn't soften. He continued explaining, page by page, how the evidence proved a long pattern of stealing and manipulation. With every document he revealed, Blair's face changed from shock to confusion to panic. Then she did what she always did when cornered. She pointed the blame at me. She claimed I was jealous, that I wanted to ruin her, that I had always envied her success. She tried to paint herself as the innocent one, saying I was creating drama for attention. But this time, her words held no power. Her excuses sounded empty and desperate in the quiet room. Holden didn't raise his voice. He simply responded with facts. He showed her the emails, the server logs, the early drafts, the meeting notes, everything that clearly proved who the real creator was. Her lies couldn't survive against the truth laid out so plainly. Every denial she tried made her look smaller, weaker, and more exposed. For the first time, Blair had nowhere to run. No charm, no confidence, no practiced smile could save her. She realized that the version of herself she had carefully built, the star employee, the talented sister, was collapsing right in front of someone she desperately wanted to impress. The confrontation ended not with shouting, but with silence. A silence that told her the truth she never wanted to face. Her actions had finally caught up to her, and she couldn't hide anymore. Holden did not waste any time after the confrontation. The very next morning, he called Blair into his office again, but this time there was no confusion in his eyes. He had made his decision, and nothing she could say would change it. He handed her a thick envelope, her termination letter. It wasn't a simple notice. It detailed everything she had done, every rule she had broken, and every lie she had told. It explained how she had stolen ideas, how she had tried to pass off other people's work as her own, and how she had damaged the company's trust. With that single letter, her entire career was finished. No company would take the risk of hiring her after reading it. When she realized what was happening, Blair tried to stay calm, but her face grew pale. She looked around as if expecting someone to defend her. She even tried to laugh, saying the punishment was too harsh, saying she had only made small mistakes. But Holden did not respond to her excuses. He had seen the truth for himself, and he was not going to protect her anymore. Every word in that letter was backed by proof she could not deny. The HR team entered the room quietly, and that was the moment Blair's panic truly showed. She tried to speak again, her voice shaking, but no one listened. She was told to pack her things. Her access was removed. Her emails were frozen. Staff members began whispering as she was escorted through the hallway, her eyes red with anger and disbelief. The same people she had mistreated for years watched her pass by, but nobody reached out to comfort her. Her fall was sudden, loud, and humiliating. I stood at a distance, watching everything unfold. Not with satisfaction, but with a quiet sense of release. For years, I had carried the weight of her actions. I had stayed silent while she took credit for my work. I had seen opportunities slip away from me, knowing she was the reason. Seeing her finally face consequences felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. She looked at me once, her expression full of rage, as if she expected me to save her from this. But I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't offer comfort. This moment wasn't about revenge anymore. It was simply the truth catching up with her. As she stepped out of the elevator for the last time, the building seemed calmer. The air felt lighter. I went back to my desk and sat down, feeling something inside me settle. It wasn't joy. It was freedom. The long shadow she had cast over my career was gone, and I finally felt the weight of injustice lifting from my shoulders. After everything settled, the office slowly returned to normal, but my life didn't. Holden called me in one afternoon, his tone calm but sincere. He told me he had reviewed all the projects again, the ones Blair had claimed as her own, and he now knew who the real creator was. He offered me a promotion, not because he felt sorry for me, but because I had earned it with years of unseen hard work. Hearing those words felt strange at first. I had spent so long working in the shadows that stepping into the light felt unreal. But it was real, and this time no one could take it from me. With the new position came a new office, new responsibilities, and a new sense of confidence. For the first time, I felt like I belonged exactly where I was. I didn't have to shrink myself or pretend to be less than I was. Holden trusted my abilities, and now I finally trusted them too. Word of what happened spread quickly, and eventually it reached my family. My parents called, their voices softer than I had ever heard them. They said they were proud of me. They said they were sorry for not believing in me before. They wanted to rebuild the closeness we once had, to fill the space they had allowed Blair to create between us. I listened to them quietly. I forgave them because holding on to anger would only keep me tied to the past. But something inside me had changed. I was no longer the quiet daughter who accepted being overlooked. I wasn't desperate for approval anymore. I loved them, but I no longer needed them to define my worth. The day I moved into my new office, I arrived early. The room was bright, with a wide window overlooking the city. I placed my things on the desk slowly, taking in the moment. It felt peaceful. There was no rush, no fear, no shadow hanging over me. Just possibility. I sat down in my chair and took a deep breath, letting the silence wrap around me. For so long, being the quiet sister meant being ignored, dismissed, or overshadowed. But now, silence meant something different. It meant control. It meant clarity. It meant strength. I had not set out to destroy Blair's life. I had only wanted the truth to be seen. And in the end, I gained something far more valuable than revenge. I gained myself. My voice, my confidence, my identity. Things she could never steal again. As I looked out of the window at the world below, a small smile touched my lips. This was not just a victory. It was a beginning, a new chapter where I finally stood at the center of my own story. The quiet sister was quiet no more.